How about them Cowboys? It's the Cowboys Squad, sponsored by Game Time. Everything Dallas Cowboys every week. Covering all the big hits and game-changing plays from America's team, the way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. Get ready and squad up. It's the Cowboys Squad Show, starting now.
Now that is an introduction. That was awesome and worth the wait for sure. The 2025 NFL Draft is now in the books, but the Locked On Cowboys Squad Show continues here tonight, and here we go. Welcome to the co-host of the daily Locked On Cowboys podcast, coming off a monster weekend with co-host Marcus Mosher, the one and only Landon McCool, and as always, my co-host on the in-season Cowboys postcasts, the coach, Glenn Stretch Smith. Great to be with you guys once again on this Monday night. We have a lot to get to, not a lot of time. Well, we do have an hour, but feels like we don't have enough time, but we're going to jump right into it. Today's episode, by the way, brought to you by the Amazon Fire TV Stick 4K. You can turn any TV into your Xbox, no console needed. Head to amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to learn more. Well, guys, we spent the weekend watching the Cowboys make their picks, and after weeks of talking about those picks and how important this draft was, we all agreed that they needed to select 3 starters. Coach, I'm going to start with you. How did the Cowboys do?
Well, initially after Thursday night, I thought, man, this is not very sexy. I mean, it didn't feel very sexy. An interior offensive lineman, and then you come back for Friday, and they go at a 250-pound defensive end, and you're like, well, all right, they're just going with what they see on their board, and then when they get to Savon Ravel, I'm like, okay, that's where I finally picked in and said, okay, I like this pick. I graded that kid. I thought he was probably the 4th best corner in my mind. He got hurt in practice after the 3rd game, I believe, of his senior year, and he had 2 interceptions in the first 3 games. But what I like is he's long. He's what you want in the secondary. And then you sit back and you think about, Friday night, okay, wow. I mean, this looks like this could shape up to really be something here, as if it felt like they kind of had a little direction. And like I said, where it wasn't real sexy, then it became kind of like, well, this is kind of cute. And then you saw the direction they went with the Texas running back and Jaden Blue. You saw where they went with a bigger, a depth at linebacker. And then what I liked is they really tipped their hand with another big offensive tackle, and then they went really big with 2 squared stance defensive tackles. And you're like, okay, now I can see where this is. I can see that Eberflus had a voice in the room. You can see that Schottenheimer put his stamp on what he wanted to do, which is a bigger, more physical football team. And that's the direction that they went. And then you lean back a little bit and you go, okay, they addressed everything except what we thought they were going to address, which was a 2 wide receiver. And then you hear Jerry come out and say, hey, we're still going to be active in this scenario. Now, is Amari Cooper still in play? I mean, might you see a situation where the Cowboys could look at Keenan Allen? I mean, I like what was done, and I like what was said.
Right. Yeah, I agree, Coach. I mean, I think for me, the biggest thing that I was excited about was kind of what you were talking about, where we've heard a very clear plan from Schottenheimer coming from since he's been hired about what they want to do, right? They want to be a more physical football team. They want to run the football. They want to, help Dak Prescott by allowing him to have a strong running game, because that's where he's played his best at times, right? Is when he's had a strong running game to rely on. We certainly harped on the fact that wide receiver 2 or a second pass catcher was a key focus for us because I think mostly how it played out kind of showed us, right? I think the only way to kind of get that sort of player is probably in the first round. And I think after Tetro McMillan went off the board to 8 for the Carolina Panthers, I think the Cowboys realized let's we didn't view any of these other guys as necessarily walk-in number ones. Let's see what's on our board. And I think that Tyler Booker falls right in line with all the things that Brian Schottenheimer's been saying this offseason. They want to be a physical football team. They want to have a high football character guy. I mean, you hear the way Tyler Booker talks about playing football and wanting to make the defenders quit and that sort of thing. And that's what you want to hear from your offensive guard. So I think that they got help. They got dealt maybe not the best hand in the sense that McMillan came off the board, probably where he was supposed to, right? And then once that happened, I think they knew exactly what they wanted to do. They doubled down on the physicality on the offensive line, which I can't fault them for at all. And I agree. I think what really made me – I like Tyler Booker because I was a big Tyler Booker fan going into this draft. But I think the thing that really, really made me feel great about this draft was the 2 picks they made on day 2. Donovan Ezerique is a guy who undersized for sure. Probably going to start out as a designated pass rusher, early in his situation. But I think he's a guy who could come in and very early in his career could be a double-digit sack guy. Maybe not his rookie year because you don't see that very often with these guys. But I think second year, third year, that's not an unrealistic goal for him. I don't think he's too small to put on a little bit of muscle, 5 or 10 pounds, and then be a better run player in the future. But I think that is going to take some time. But I think until then, you've got a demon coming off of the edge, off of Micah Parsons, which I think will be incredibly valuable on passing downs. And then day 3, to me, again, just more of what of reinforcing what they've been talking about. And I think, Coach hit it correctly. You get a big, strong guy who you can play at guard or tackle. In Cornelius, I think he's kind of you look at him and he's kind of a tweener a little bit, because maybe if you wanted him to be a full-time tackle, you'd like for him to be a little bit taller, maybe a little bit bigger, but he plays with the level of physicality that I think will work if you needed to put him out there temporarily. And I think a guard situation would be good for him as well. I think Toei, the UCLA nose tackle, it's just good to see them try to invest in 330-pound nose tackles again, and getting serious about stopping the run. So I thought I had a lot of guys tell me that they had a 4th-round grade on this guy because I think he can do maybe even a little bit more than just eat double teams. I think he can push the pocket on some passing downs if you needed him to. And then Akim Bisode, the Maryland kid. I'll tell you what. I turned on the Maryland tape to watch Jordan Phillips, who was an earlier pick in the draft. And I like, this is an exercise that I like to do, is when I put on the tape, I don't like to look up what number I'm looking for at first. I like to put on the tape and see if I can identify which one of the guys on the tape is the NFL player. And Akim Bisode was actually the guy that I mistaken for Jordan Phillips up front, because I thought he had some traits to him. So he's definitely is a ways off a little bit, but I think he's a guy that you could develop. Shermer James, here's the thing about James to me is that I think there were some other guys that they could have taken at linebacker if they were looking for someone to maybe more immediately get on the field. But I think at that point in the draft, what you're actually targeting is traits, because to be honest, the most this guy is probably going to play his rookie year is on special teams. So I'm going to, if this guy's a better special teams player than the other guy, that may be the kind of tiebreaker for me a little bit. And again, Eberflus is a guy who's known for developing linebackers. So I'll take the Tracy guy there at linebacker. I thought overall, it just, it just kind of doubled down on all the things that they've been talking about in the offseason. And I agree, look, we've been hearing some whispers about how they're going to solve the second pass catcher problem, whether it's getting somebody off the street, which, I think if you needed to go the Cooper route, if you needed to go the Keenan Allen route. I think that those guys are passable. I wonder about how much juice either one of those two guys have left. I would prefer to go the route, if they can, of trading for somebody, even if it's for a rental situation, because I think you can, if you get somebody who's coming on a contract here, maybe you get them to light a fire under their butt because they need to get paid. Even if you let them walk at the end of the season, you'll end up getting a comp pick that's something comparable to what you probably traded to get them in the first place. So a guy like George Pickens, who may not be a great fit personality-wise for this team overall, I think he isn't such a terrible idea in a desperation pick, because I think you don't have to commit to him long-term. You could get him in a motivated situation and potentially, get a comp pick back after he walks out.
Yeah, Coach, what did you think? And I want to get back to a lot of that, Landon, but want to kind of start at the top. Coach, I know there was some people that criticized the selection of Tyler Booker at number 12 after kind of processing everything over the weekend. What were your thoughts on that pick overall?
Well, he was my top inside guy. I mean, I can show you over here. He was the top guy that I had. Is that, again, an inside guy at number 12? Well, you go, got it. That's a little bit rich, but
pricey for sure.
When you see that, and you keep in mind that there were probably only maybe 12 to 14 true first-round grades, my question would be, did they have a first-round grade on him? And the answer would be yes. If that's what they did, not trading out, because there were people that wanted to get back up into that situation. Here's the other thing. I mean, the only thing I really wasn't crazy about is, when they picked him and he's running up the alley, I mean, he's tugging at his britches. I question he's got enough ass on him to really hunker down and play inside there. But when you look at how he plays, when you look at the brand of football he plays, and this is a guy who, his personality is he loves football. So I just think there were other little things that we didn't know about as far as personality-wise, or what how his interviews went, or what they felt like they really needed inside. I thought that Brock Hoffman did a really good job, but maybe they're looking for better than that. And here they are in the first round with a guy with a first-round grade, and they pulled the trigger there. It almost feels like it did when they drafted Travis Frederick. We were wanting something really sexy at that time, and then they go draft a center from Wisconsin, and then you're waiting for the no. I mean, this guy can play, and so I think that's where we're at. I think you got to look at this draft though as a whole. You got to kind of go alpha to omega with it, and you got to look. And when you do that, you see the direction that they're going, which is they are going to have bigger, more squared stance defensive tackles inside. I mean, that's just a fact. And where Marinelli was a staggered stance guy, one gap guy, get up the field. And then you had Zimmer, who was, he wanted to play in a wider situation and bring the backers into the A gaps and isolate your center or your guard, whichever you were turning the protection on their two inside guys. Eberflus is saying, hey, we're gonna stop the run, number one, and then we're gonna come back with these long corners that we got, and we're gonna play coverage when it comes time to throw the ball, and then we're gonna put some pass rushers out there and substitute positionally for down and distance. I mean, to me, it kind of reads like a roadmap, and I'm not saying that trying to be arrogant. I'm saying that I think they tipped their hand showing you what they're about and the culture that they want to create, which is guys that love football, kind of gym rat kind of guys. And hey, last I checked, I mean, during the off season, Dallas is a pretty good place to be. So you live in Dallas and you're here year round, and we have a quarterback who, we know all the feel good stories about all that. I just think they wanted guys that fit into that, or felt like it fit into that, into that mold. And that's the direction that they went.
Real quick before we go to break, I just want to say, I think there are probably other guys who have higher ceilings in this draft class. I don't know that there's too many other players that have that I feel as confident are going to reach their ceiling as much as Tyler Booker. Just because of all the things you talked about. Loves football, the right mentality. So I'm excited to see. I agree. I think he was a first round pick on their board. That's why they took him. But I also think that some of the tiebreaker stuff that we saw later on in the draft too is they're taking those personalities because they're feeling more confident that those guys are going to be able to hit their ceilings, not just leave it hypothetical.
And I would add, and you guys can jump in on this real quick, but I got the sense that he was the guy that they really wanted. That, we talked about, well, what if this happens, or how do they react? But I got the sense that they really like him a lot, and they believe he's a special person and player.
It sounds like they had offers to trade away, and they didn't, because they liked this guy so much. I think after Tetra McMillan was gone, they were very clearly going this route.
Yeah, and I mean, there's no question there were people looking to get back up into that 12th pick, and they had enough discernment to say that this is the direction we're going. So that's that. In my mind, that's where you get an offensive line coach that feels strong about what he believes in.
Yep.
Schottenheimer, who felt strong about what he believed in, and again, Jerry takes a lot of arrows for listening, but he listened to his people, and you can tell that's exactly what happened. Is he let those guys. And he trusted what Will McClay was saying, the scouts were saying, trusted what the coaches said, and they made the pick.
All right, we're going to come back to the draft. Also, when we return, we want to hear from you via the comment crew, so please jump in and be a part of the show. We got a lot of people watching, a lot of people chiming in, so we want to get your thoughts, and want to throw, you guys kind of touched on it in the open, but a little bit of the news of the day, if you will, what's going on right now with the Cowboys. We'll get into all of that and more as the Cowboys Squad Show continues. This is Locked On. All right, we've been talking about Amazon Fire Stick and also about what's going on at Game Time. And there is nothing like the atmosphere of an NBA playoff game. Every bucket, every defensive stop, every moment feels large, feels huge. It's electric in the arena. And with Game Time, you can be a part of it without the stress of last-minute ticket hunting. Game Time makes it fast and easy to get playoff tickets, even when demand is sky high. Prices on the app actually go down as tip-off gets closer. And their last-minute deals can save you up to 60%. That's a lot. So here's why I use Game Time. Couple of things. Number one, love the priority, the last-minute deals, as I just said. The other thing, too, the all-in pricing means that there are no surprise fees when you check out. So what you see is what you pay. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Okay, welcome back to the Cowboys Squad Show. The coach, Glenn Stretch Smith, Landon McCool, co-host of the daily podcast, Cowboys Daily Podcast Show here on Locked On, and I am Jeff Biggs. Okay, so you guys kind of hit on this. After the draft, the Cowboys still have that need. We talked about the need for another wide receiver. They did not select a wideout for the first time since 2020. So right now, that leaves Jalen Tolbert, Paris Campbell, Ryan Flournoy, Jalen Brooks, and Jonathan Mingo at the moment as the complements to CeeDee Lamb on the Cowboys offense. Now, some of the names that are being thrown out there, a reunion with Amari Cooper, coach who mentioned Keenan Allen, Elijah Moore, Robert Woods apparently has agreed with the Steelers, so he's off the board. Odell Beckham Jr., DJ Clark, and Nelson Aguilar, to name a few. I saw one report that The Cowboys apparently feel okay with Mingo as a possible number 2. What are your thoughts? Landon, you go first.
Well, I don't know. I think that they feel okay with Mingo to a certain degree, but I also certainly think that if the right opportunity came up, they would certainly look to upgrade that situation. I think, the list of names that you just kind of rattled off, I mean, those folks are all, available for a reason, right?
Right.
I think that they're all professionals, and I do think that you might get an initial upgrade, from what you've got if you were to sign, Cooper specifically, maybe. Allen, it's like Allen is right on the line, right? I just think that I think having a veteran leadership, and I think that there would be benefits to having him in here, but at the same time, I almost wonder, is it worth doing at this point? I think the issue is clearly like they need to upgrade the talent, right? Like
right.
They don't need numbers. Like they've got guys who I feel okay and interested in and functioning as wide receivers 3, 4, and 5, right? You need to like have a significant tier level of talent upgrade, somewhere between CeeDee Lamb and the rest of these guys who are all kind of clumped together. So I have been more advocating for looking in the trade market. I mean, specifically with teams that, maybe have double dipped even in the draft that might have some extras on the roster. I think a rental situation, like I said previously, would work because of the timing of the situation. So I think there are still lots of ways to kind of handle this situation. But this is definitely for me the thing that I'm the most interested in when I wake up in the morning, to see what the Cowboys are doing. Like, it's like, is there a talk about this guy, that guy? The good news is that, and this is what I keep telling folks, is that it's April 28th, guys. Like, we don't play football games on May 1st. So there are still time to get this done. You want to get somebody in, hopefully for OTAs, definitely before training camp if you can. But there is still time to kind of get this part done. But until it does get done, it's just going to be something that's kind of in the back of our mind until it gets resolved.
Yeah, I can make the argument they need 2 guys. I mean, I really do. I think Flournoy is just a guy. I think Mingo is okay. He almost looks like
they don't know what he is at this point.
He almost looks like a safety to me. 215.
He's big.
He's a big guy. Tolbert, I like. Brooks is okay. I mean, but those are kind of 3 and 4 and 5 to me. So I could argue that not only do they need a 2, they also need another. They also need another guy. And so, as much as I love Cavante Turpin, he's a return guy. I mean, let's not mistake any of that. But I do think that there's a certain aspect of it that a guy needs to get in here now, because if you're the 2, you got to start working on a connection with the quarterback, and that's why I went to Cooper a few weeks ago. I mean, I think Amari frustrated Dak a lot the first time he was here, because there were times when he would disappear. There were times when he would cut routes short. You could tell there was a certain level of disconnect with the 2 of them. But I think Amari Cooper still plays at a very high level, and he can be really good opposite of CeeDee. Now, Keenan Allen is a big physical guy. I mean, he's kind of that red zone, to me, that red zone threat. If you want to go double CD, okay, you get to the backside with him. And he's a little long in the tooth, but I wouldn't have any problem with him either. I'm not – the one thing I want to see is I want to see them be proactive in getting somebody in here. Is George Pickens a guy that you want to get with? I mean, he can spin off in a heartbeat. Now, is that what you want to enter into your locker room? And I think all those are discussions they're going to have.
I think Cooper has some of that problem, and I think part of the issue that he had problems with Dak is because he wasn't practicing when he was with the Cowboys. Like, and I think that was part of the issue of why he, kind of fell out of favor here is that he would show up to the games, but it was always some kind of nagging injury that was keeping him off the practice field. And I think that combined with a couple other things and ultimately him and McCarthy probably butting heads, are ultimately the reason he left. But, McCarthy's not here anymore. Maybe some other folks, are willing to look past that, and certainly with desperation. But all these guys have warts like that, right? Even Pickens, like, I think Pickens has a similar set of problems where it's like he's not like an off-field issue guy. He's not like, and he seems to like football a lot, but it's always just something with him, right? It's like I'm pretty sure there was a thing last year where he showed up to the stadium like 15 minutes before the game started or something like that, and he was supposed to be active that day. So it's the classic mercurial wide receiver stuff, right? So I think that at this point, unfortunately, the more talented you want to be, the likely you're probably going to have to dip into the more crazy folks as well, or at least the not as reliable folks. And I think Keenan Allen is the other end of that, right? Where he is long in the tooth, and I think most of his career has been made by having the skill to separate and just enough juice throughout his career to kind of continue to keep just an inches away from guys and be a separator. I wonder if like that hasn't kind of passed a threshold at this point where he's not able to his body doesn't have that juice anymore. But along the lines of what Coach is saying, like, if you feel like you need more than one wide receiver here, I think that having a guy like Keenan Allen in the locker room is never a terrible thing. And his influence on and certainly being the right kind of person that they're looking for, and his influence on the younger wide receivers, I think wouldn't be the worst thing. I just think that I don't know if signing Keenan Allen exclusively by itself is a solution to what we're talking about. I think it would need to be like in part of a couple of moves.
Yeah, my only thing too with Keenan Allen, guys, is I'm okay with everything that you just said, Landon, and you as well, Coach. My big thing is it's such an important position. It's going to be, and I can't trust his injury history. He's just too. Almost, I can't remember the last time you could say he played a full season and had a dominant impact in the playoffs.
Can I answer this question in here real quick? Because someone's also talking about the culture aspect of this, and I think that is a big part of this for sure. But I also think that the Cowboys are in a situation where they're desperate, right? They need to get this secondary pass catching weapon. And again, I think if you're talking about a rental situation. And you're not talking about like these are very delicate situations. Not all of these are the same. And I think that Pickens is a guy who loves football. Like, I don't think that he doesn't pass the culture test in that sense. I think it's more like a reliability issue. It's an immaturity issue, right? And I think that if you put him in the right locker room in a motivated situation to get paid, and this just isn't just Pickens. I think there's several other people that could probably fall under this category as well. You've got him in a contract year. They know they need to get paid. They know that they need to have a good season. They know that the Cowboys are probably a good place for them to get that opportunity because there's going to be a lot of tension for CeeDee Lamb. They're going to get lots of targets. This could be a good situation for someone that, like I said, maybe you don't want in the locker room long-term, but you could have a mutually beneficial situation where you're both helping each other out this next coming season.
Coach, what do you think of that? The idea of you get a guy and it's kind of a win-win. He's got to be motivated to get paid, and it's also a new change of scenery. So he's going to be on his best behavior at least for one season coming over. A lot of strong personalities, like Micah, Dak in that locker room, might be worth the risk.
Yeah, I mean that's what we're talking about here, risk reward. Yep. That's what we're dealing with. But I mean, is George Pickens going to come in here and work his ass off to be a 2? I don't know that. I really don't. I mean, he's a little butthurt right now because they traded for DK Metcalf, who that's going to be the one. Now, might a little better weather, might getting away from the Three Rivers and Monongahela. I don't even know if I can name the other two, but I mean, Ohio, maybe getting away from that. Maybe, different guys get in different, are motivated by different things. And I don't know. I haven't. I mean, I've never had any sort of dealing with that. I can just tell you that when you start dealing with a culture in the locker room, I mean, the last thing you want is a guy that's a turd in the locker room. And what you don't want more than that is a drut. Jeff, you know what a drut is?
I do not, but
that's a backwards turd. That's a backwards turd. You don't want one of them either. Well, now you got to, you got to decide. Is he the guy that can fit in here, and do you think he fits personality-wise in the meeting room? We got a new receiver coach. There's a lot of little dynamics that you got to kind of look at, and we don't know all this stuff. It's like, I'm screaming at the TV. What about Isaiah Bond? Well, then you find out there's a rape charge, and there's a lot of different things that are out there, and so there's just some certain little factors that we don't know. We take we think we know, and we listen to. I mean, I can't see Odell Beckham wanting to come in here and be in that situation. So, but maybe he still wants to play. Who knows? It's just there's so many other little factors that are out there. But at the end of the day, they got to have a 2 receiver, and right now they don't have that guy on the roster.
All right. I'll tell you what, we got a lot of people that kind of stirred it up a little bit. So when we come back, I promise, when we come back, it's going to be really quick. We'll get into some of these comments, and I'll let you guys react. All right. We'll do that when we come back. Lots to get to as the Cowboys Squad Show continues. The draft is over. Now the real work begins. This is the Cowboys Squad Show. All right, welcome back to the Cowboys Squad Show. See, I told you that was quick. All right, we got to give it up, first of all, our man, Stephen White. He has been here from the beginning, and he is all over it, weighing in on all kinds of things. He says hello to both of you and to me as well, talking about the culture, talking about Pickens has the body but not the mind. Cooper is hell when he's well. This is all Stephen. And let's see. Stephen White says, I had mocked Mingo a lot in that draft. I see something special in him.
I think with Mingo, it's like, we just don't know. Like, I mean, it's like, I think it's hard for us to just have an opinion, honestly, because like, you didn't see very much of him, his rookie year when he was playing in a terrible situation in Carolina. And then he comes to Dallas in this trade. And obviously everyone, kind of automatically hates the trade, which, I mean, again, like I get it, especially since you didn't get anything out of it. But I think you go back and you look at what Mingo did last year, and he more than any other wide receiver last year ran into some really crazy bad luck with some of his targets at Cooper Rush, and ultimately just came into the squad halfway through the season. So you just didn't get a very good view of exactly who he is. Right. So I think it's hard for any of us to have any kind of real strong opinion about if he could or could not come in and take this over. But I do think I can speak somewhat expertly enough to say that I would have a really hard time believing that he's improved enough this offseason that he's coming in at a level that he's going to quench our thirst for a wide receiver too, right? Like maybe I could be convinced that, man, he really worked hard this offseason. He's out there chopping his feet. He's out there running the cones. He's on the jugs machine every single day. And maybe he's made it to where he's a comfortable rotational X piece, right? And a big body that you could trust in certain situations. But as far as like a guy that you're going to feel comfortable, going to war opposite of CeeDee Lamb and is going to be able to take advantage of one-on-one, that is provided by CeeDee and actually make defenses pay on a consistent basis. Like, I think that's just a real stretch of the imagination, and it would be a difficult leap to take in one offseason.
I mean, this guy's really never had a quarterback, right? I mean, and I think that's what Jerry's saying. I think that's what the scouts are saying. Hey, we really don't know what we have, and so yeah, all that sounds good. And I mean, all that smells right. But at the end of the day, I mean, as a defensive coordinator, I mean, are you going to flip on the film and say, boy, Mingo's backside here, man? Have we got an issue if we single him up? The answer is no. So that's where I think you have to, there has to be a little fear involved in who you deal with. And I keep going back to Amari Cooper, because Amari Cooper will still flat run by you, and he can also make the catch and take it to the house. So those are things that I think that they're going to have to figure out, and I think they will. I really do. I mean, right now they're already, they're going to start throwing the ball. You're going to start seeing some of these OTAs, and they'll get a feel for what Mingo is. And I believe they already know that, but they're going to come out and say, "Hey, we want to see what we have here." And that, like I said, I mean that feels good, but at the end of the day, what you have is probably a 3 or a 4 receiver. You still got to have a 2, and you still got to have another guy, in an attrition situation.
All right, we got Coconut Man, who says we don't need a 1-year rental that we should not pay. He also says, let's see Tolbert make his contract year jump. Glenn K says, given Amari versus Pickens, I'll take Pickens. He is way better than Cooper. Beckham is cooked. And Mike says, I think Jaden Blue will be used in the slot. And Kirk Barber says, should Dallas sign Amari Cooper? Can't give to Dallas because he did not get receiver help.
I think he said you can't give an A.
Can't give. Okay. Oh, gotcha. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I on the rental thing, like I just don't see a downside to the rental thing, right? Like, I mean, outside of like if you actually have real concerns about this person being in your locker room, that's obviously that's an issue. But if you're this is a situation where you're potentially finding a motivated player who's probably needs a situation where they need to shine a little bit. And if you trade for this kind of player, I'm not talking about necessarily trading a first round pick or even a second round pick, maybe a third, maybe a fourth, someone that if they play well enough, they come out here and they come get like 800 yards or 700 yards receiving somehow opposite of CeeDee Lamb, that they can play themselves into a contract that could net you a 4th round comp pick, and then suddenly all you've done is trade back in the 3rd round of next year's draft in order to have a second wide receiver this year. And then what do you do if you want to actually go for a long-term solution? You can punt that till next year, or if it doesn't work out, you could flip a pick before the trade deadline this season, right? There's still plenty of time to fix that situation. But I agree with Coach. You need to actually show some initiative. I think that there were times, like specifically last season, where the running back situation, I kept expecting them to make an addition to the running back room, and they just never did, right? And they just went into the season with what they had, and then what did they even do? They kind of doubled down with just using Zeke up front instead of giving the ball to the best running back that they had in the backfield at the time. So I want to see them at least try to not. I have belief. I'm bullish on these younger guys too, but I think that the Cowboys still need to make inroads on trying to make efforts to replace or find a secondary pass catching weapon, because otherwise this offense is going to continue to try to play in a box, and especially in a year where they're trying to run the football more effectively, right? Yeah. Like, let's get some of these guys out of the box a little bit so we can have Tyler Booker crushing corners and linebackers, out on the edge. And I just think that they need to find somebody to kind of help them vertically stretch the defense to give some operating room to guys like CD and to Ferguson.
I'm going to tell you the reason they didn't upgrade the running back is because he didn't want to run the ball. He told you that. I don't want to run the ball. Mike McCarthy didn't want to run the ball.
Oh, McCarthy?
Yeah, he didn't want to run the ball. And so he was telling you that by saying, I'm not gonna spend anything there because I don't want to run the ball. And I think you saw, hell, it was time Cooper Rush threw the ball 50-something times in a game, and you're like,
that's
what
right.
the hell is going on? And so I don't think that fit his. I don't think it fit his style. Did he want to say the right things? And yeah, he went in the barn and he studied all this analytical stuff, and all that sounded great. But at the end of the day, he showed you exactly what he wanted to do, which was he didn't run the football. I started this podcast by saying I believe that Schottenheimer is showing you what he wants to do, which is be physical and run the football and stop the run. So I think you're just going to see a difference in how personnel is approached and how they look at what they do from a day in, day out basis. Even what happens, I think, in training camp. I mean, if you see them, and yeah, they're going to thud it up, and there's only so much time you can have contact and all that stuff. But hey, I'll bet you if you take a look at practice plans and you look at all that, they're going to be working on short yardage and goal line a hell of a lot more than what the last coaching staff did. Right, wrong, or indifferent, I think they're showing you what they want to do, which is, be physical and get downhill.
Yeah, and again, it's about them doing what they're saying, right? And I think that has been a real problem in the McCarthy era, right? Is that they would say one thing and then that wasn't necessarily, what they were following through in or what they were actually committing to. I see Marcus in the chat and he's calling McCarthy PFF_McCarthy, which is pretty funny. Yeah, and I think with Shotty, you've seen him say what he wants to do. You've seen them follow through with that with action in free agency and in the draft. It's a pretty clear picture, and I think that again, we're not moving off of the fact that the Cowboys need to get a secondary pass catching. That's all we've been talking about since the draft. But I think that to not recognize what they are building with this draft and to not see that they're coming in and trying to build a more physical football team. And that's all in service of Dak, right? In service of the football team as well. I think, look, what's going to help Dak just as much as a secondary pass catching weapon, a solid run game and a good defense that can really make you struggle to score. I think those things will help you play a little bit of keep away. I think those things will certainly help you when the weather turns cold and the football changes and the teams get better. So these are all things that are helping improve the team around the edges, just not on the edges that we've talked about yet. And it's not too late to kind of still continue to work on the pass catchers on this team.
Let me ask you about this before we take our final break, and then we'll get back into some more of the draft. But while we're talking about the running backs, what do you guys think of the two running backs that the Cowboys selected in Blue and Maffa?
I mean, I like Jaden Blue. I mean, I think he's really, in my mind, he's a really good combination to what you have and what you currently have in the room with Williams and Sanders. I think both of those guys are going to be good backs. Now you've you've given a guy who can take it for a home run, and then Maffa, I think is he or is he not going to make the team? I think that's that's a question. But he's a 6'1", 230-pound guy who, again, you're talking about physical practices. Hey, he can go bow his neck, hit it up in there. And I think that's what you're going to see. I think you're going to see them want to say, we got a stacked running back room, and we feel good about what we have. And they're going to make a commitment to run the football. That's really all they're telling you without saying it. They're telling you we drafted two running backs because we're going to make a commitment along with two big offensive linemen to, bludgeon you a little bit.
Yeah, I thought it was. I like the picks. My big thing was that they needed to come out of this class with some juice at the back position, because I think they're going to be able to find hammers, and I think they want hammers. That's fine, but they needed to find at least one juice back, because those guys are a little bit more difficult to find, and I think Blue is got the juice. That's for sure. I think he's a much he's kind of close to what you're expecting with Pollard, right? Where Pollard was a guy who was a converted wide receiver at Memphis and then into running back. But the difference between him and a lot of other just receiving backs is that he did a lot of the running back things well, right? Like, he has good vision. He has good feet. I love the way Blue's eyes are tied to his feet, and it really helps him run between the tackles a lot better than you would expect for a guy who is, probably just over 200 pounds. But the explosiveness is just hard to deny, right? Like, I mean, you see it too when he gets an angle. He could stutter, he can hesitate. He sets up his blocks so the defenders he's playing peekaboo around bigger blockers. And then once he gets the lane, I mean, he's got such easy speed. You just see him take off, and once he's got an angle, it's like he's not even really running that fast, and he's passing guys. So that was an incredible pick, I thought, and I think it does. To me, they're not coming out and saying it yet, but to me, it does kind of portend a commitment to a running back by committee style, and I think the 4 running backs that we're talking about, the 2 draft picks and the 2 vets, they're going to go in there and kind of battle it out. I wouldn't be surprised if it wasn't a situation where Williams and Maffa are battling out for one spot potentially, or maybe like one spot on the roster and the other one's like a practice squad guy or something, and then Sanders kind of operates in that third rotational role, and they kind of do a thunder and lightning carry situation between whoever wins that thunder role for between Maffa and Williams, and then just giving Blue a lot of opportunities to make big plays. Now, I will say the one thing I worry about with Blue is that he did put the ball on the ground.
I was going to say that. I did the Texas postcasts, and that's the only thing. That's the only thing.
I think
if I
remember
a couple times.
Something like 1 per every 47 carries or 45 carries, if I'm not mistaken, which that's a lot. So, and I think part of it was, just some sloppy technique at times.
Yeah.
So I think it can be fixed, but it is something that you definitely have to watch out for. And it's something that he's going to have to work on.
Yeah. And Coach, he does have that one trait, though, talking about Blue, that kind of natural slipperiness where you can't really describe it. It just kind of does it and is just able to kind of find the open space and has that little extra burst that it doesn't look necessarily fast, but then all of a sudden he's out ahead of guys and you're like, wow, where did that come from?
Yeah. I mean, this is a tough kid. I mean, his brothers rodeo guys. I mean, he's a tough kid. So, I like what they've got there. I do. I didn't have a problem, with either what they did with Williams or Sanders in the offseason. I mean, Sanders rushed for, I think, 1,400 yards one year. So, hey, give me. Let's get into an open battle, and I promise you, he won't have a fumble problem for long, because they'll be. You think they're not going to be punching at the football, and they're not. It's not going to be a focus. Day one, it certainly will be. So I think those are all things that, that's why you call the guy the coach. I mean, fix him, get it fixed, and get him carrying the ball a little differently, and get him coached up. I don't have a problem there at all. I see this being a really good pick, and I like a back that can go the distance. And guess what? If he gets a crease, he can make the safety miss, number one, which you always got an unblocked guy. He can make the safety miss, and then if he misses, I mean, then we're off to the races.
Yeah. All right. Going to take our final time out when we come back. My final question to you guys, and we'll get some more comments from you via the comment crew as well. Great to be with you on this Monday night. This is the Cowboys Squad Show. All right, we are back. Welcome back to the Cowboys Squad Show. Landon McCool, the co-host of the Daily Cowboys podcast with Marcus Mosier, who was going at it with some fans here in the chat room. We got the coach, Glenn Stretch Smith, and I am Jeff Biggs. So we talked about the three starters part of the draft, but the other big question that you guys, the big point that you guys both made going in, we talked about the talent gap, that when you look at where the Cowboys are within the division, they needed to bridge that gap. They needed more talent. My question to both of you is, now that the draft is over, how close are they? How much more do they need? The draft is over. I know we have to wait and see and go through training camp and everything else, but do you feel better about where they are going into the season? I mean, that's really what it's all about.
I think it's tough to say at this point, obviously, and that's a cop-out answer for sure. But I think that, look, I think things looked artificially terrible last year as well, right? Like, when things are bad, things look bad, right? And things can kind of start snowballing to a large degree. So I kind of, I'm interested to see, just how much improvement can be made by some of the simple things that have been done, just by the change in coaching staff, just by the schematic changes they're making. Like, I think leaning into being a more physical football team, leaning into a commitment to the running game, leaning into, putting your players in better positions to make plays, a commitment to using more condensed formations, using more motion, just like some of the stuff that Shadi talked about in his introductory press conference that, again, as he has kind of shown us that he was serious about the things he's talked about through the draft and through the offseason, you hope that the schematic stuff also kind of makes its way to the truth section in training camp. And what kind of margins and improvements does that help the Cowboys, improve, especially on offense? I mean, just having a margin level of health or not losing, I just don't think you can discount how detrimental it is to a defense specifically to lose, like, you're starting, I think it was 5 pass rushers at one point, right?
It was unreal. It was unreal.
And then to have a similar run, kind of overlapping, and then a little bit later in the season with the cornerbacks, right? Like, it's just, you left yourself completely exposed. So I do think that this is a situation where this team is more talented than they showed at certain points last year because of injuries, right? And I do think that they have to find a way to kind of catch up with the Eagles in the overall, roster aspect of it. But I think there were times this offseason that we talked about this team as if they didn't have solutions already for the big money 5 positions on this roster, right? Like, they didn't already have a quarterback, a wide receiver, a tackle, that they're working on. Maybe it's not solved there, but a pass rusher and a cornerback, right? They've got talent on this roster. I don't think it showed itself very well last year due to a bunch of different reasons, including injury. But I think that if you can get yourself at least kind of back to zero from where you were the previous season, and then you add in this new youth, I think you've made a dent, but we won't know until the games start getting played.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about a quarterback that's coming off a hamstring injury that he supposedly tore off the bone. I mean, do I like what they did in free agency? I mean, they locked up Odigizua. They brought, they bring back Dante Fowler, Sam Williams, who a lot of people were counting on last year. We'll see how he plays. Marshawn Nealon's second year in the, in this defense. What does Eberflus want to do defensively? I mean, he did a lot with a lot of hard hat guys in Chicago, but they did some really dumb things too, to lose late in the year to Washington, and so I think it's right now. Do I think they closed the gap with Philadelphia? No, I don't. I mean, I love Jihad Campbell. I mean, he was the best linebacker on the board, and he will knock your yang off. Now he's coming off an injury. Makuba, who Philadelphia drafted, a really good safety. So, again, it's about football. There's a certain amount of attrition that's involved in it, and then there's a certain amount of luck that, guys got to stay healthy, and you got to keep guys healthy. And then hopefully these young, I want to see, can Mozzie Smith continue to make the step year 3 that he made into year 2? Is he, can Eberflus get him in more of that squared stance where he's more comfortable like he did at Michigan? There's just a lot of things that we're going to have to see. Do I think they upgraded in the secondary? Absolutely. Do I think they're going to be more physical on the defensive line? Absolutely. Do I think they're going to be more physical and balanced offensively? Absolutely. But don't mistake it. You have 1 or 2 guys go down and it's the wrong guys. You can go from drinking the wine to stomping the grapes in several days.
Well said. Well said. And I have to say, kind of talking about all of this, it's like I want to get going. I'm fired up. I'm wondering, when we might see teams start to kind of make some more moves now and start to make decisions and pull the trigger and make guys available.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're going to start hearing more and more of those conversations the next few days. I think it wasn't until today at 4:00, if I'm not mistaken, that that it's only now that they can start signing free agents that don't count towards any sort of comp picks. Even though I read that and it didn't really make sense because it's after the draft. So maybe they were still counting towards next year's comp picks. But either way, I do think that it's going to start loosening things up now. And yeah, I think there is a chance that some of these trades, including the ones that we're kind of waiting on, maybe that waits until we're into OTAs, because some of these deals may require teams getting into these OTA practices and seeing what they've got with their wide receivers, getting an idea, seeing these guys in the field and going, all right, yeah, maybe I am a little okay with potentially dangling this guy for this amount. So I think, I'm sure we'll all be waking up every morning to see the alerts to see if a trade's been announced. But I would say that I wouldn't necessarily think that it has to happen, the next week or so. It would be better the sooner the better, for the reasons that Coach mentioned. Like, you want to get him in here and get practicing. But a deal happens when a deal needs to get done. And so if the team that's trading away the player isn't sure yet, you kind of have to wait until they're ready to make a deal.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still on board with, what would it take to get Jalen Ramsey in here? I mean, I think you even need another corner. I think and you start messing with the money situation, and Steven can move the money around and get the right guys. So I think it's just a question of them having the confidence in who the right guys are, and then, then making those moves and getting them in here. I just like what Jerry said, which is we are going to continue to be active, which he hasn't done that. And really, in my memory, made those kind of comments. So he's aware, and I'm sure he hasn't changed his day. I'm sure it's Blue Star Oil and Gas at 5:00 tomorrow morning, and he'll look at, what's going on with the Cowboys about mid-morning, and hopefully, you see some things start to, get more, clarify, more clear, whatever term you want to use there.
Yeah. And I always like to say, I mean, if we're kicking all this around and we have an idea, kind of an idea of what we think some of the needs might be, and they're making those comments publicly, trust me, they know. And it's just a matter of you got to wait for, like you say, Coach, and you too, Landon, wait for the right deal, and it'll happen. All right. Well, Coach, you and I and Marcus are going to be back on Thursday. Landon, what do you guys got coming up this week?
Yeah, it's breaking all this down. I mean, honestly, this is the easy part, right? The selecting of these guys. Now we got to dig into how they fit on the roster and kind of figure out, what the Cowboys are going to be doing moving forward. So I would expect a deep dives on all these draft picks, and then after that, we're going to have to do some deep dives on some undrafted free agents as well. So lots of film watching in the next few weeks.
All right, one day at a time now as we count down until OTAs and training camp, and the season will be here. We're already almost at May, which is unbelievable. Yep. Feels like Super Bowl just ended. All right, that is Landon McCool. Be sure and check him out every day with Marcus Mosher with the daily Locked On Cowboys podcast. For the coach, Glenn Stretch Smith, I'm Jeff Biggs. We will be back with you on Thursday morning. Thank you to everybody that was a part of the show today. If we didn't get to your comments, please continue to be a part of the show. We do read, and we love your input, love your takes, and want you to be a part of it every day. I mean, we're here for this, for you, for the off season. We're going to get through this until we get the season going. So thank you for watching. Have a great week. And until Thursday, this has been the Cowboys Squad Show.